Hi everyone, this is Robert and welcome to Deep Geek. Welcome to episode 3, Westworld season 2 pre-show. I'm really excited by my guests today. I'm sure you know both of them, but they are two of the best people to have on to be talking about Westworld with the great in-depth knowledge that they've got. First of all, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, the extremely talented Vanessa Cole. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Vanessa Cole. I actually write for Westworld Watchers, a fan site devoted completely to Westworld with news and recaps and all that fun stuff. You also may know me from Watchers on the Wall, as I write for them as well for the Game of Thrones side of things. And I do art. So if you follow me on Twitter, it's at VK Cole Artist. You can see all of my work there.
Fantastic. And you can also see some of her work here. It's a little bit far away, but it's definitely there. And then also my other guest today is my longtime collaborator on Westworld, the wonderful Justin Thomas. Justin, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hey everybody, happy to be here out of the sick bed. I couldn't make any videos this week. I apologize, and I'm still playing catch up. I've not watched any of Robert's, anybody's, so I am about as close to a casual viewer that you will ever get from me. But looking forward to it, and I like I said, I wouldn't miss this panel for the world. So very, very excited to talk some Westworld with you guys. And you can find me on the Justin Thomas Show. Also, I run the Mino app.
Excellent. And I would highly recommend you check out both of these people's work, Westworld Watchers and the Justin Thomas Show. So let's get into it. I think that what we'll do is roughly the same thing we've done before. We're going to do the first half. We're going to be largely focusing on last episode, episode 2. There was a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of questions came out. I think we've got a lot of answers to things that we were thinking about before, but more questions have been piled on. So let's get into that one first. The second half, we'll make a few predictions about what's coming forward, not just in the next episode, but perhaps even looking slightly beyond. I know, Vanessa, that you've got some episode titles for later in the season that you can tell us about. But as always, if there are any super chats, we will come to them straight away. I have at least one question from my patrons that we will get to when we get to that bit of the conversation. But let's just get straight into it. Vanessa, do you want to kick us off? Just looking back, I think there's 3 or 4 strands we can look at in episode 2. Which was the sort of the strand that really grabbed you the most?
Well, I love the William and Logan characters, and I love seeing all of that backstory. So it was really good to see those guys back. The actors are amazing. I'm a big fan of both of theirs. So I really enjoyed that and getting some more of the history of Delos and how William came to take power. And it was really kind of emotionally affecting to see. I mean, I've liked Logan. I know he's, a real jerk and he's meant to be this really unlikable character, but I feel like he's someone you kind of take pity on toward the end of season 1, and just seeing kind of what's become of him in the aftermath of his trip to the park with William, and how that has really taken a toll. It could have made me sad for him, but it was really interesting to see kind of the power dynamic and how it shifted between the two of those guys. So yeah, I mean, that was probably my favorite part of the episode, was just kind of seeing the progression.
Yeah, I love that too. Though, I mean, for those who are sort of like keeping on top of the timelines here, there was a bit that was earlier than the bit that we saw with William and Logan last time. So we got a bit that was when they were originally approached by Ford and by Arnold, and then there was a little bit after they had gone in and they bought the company, and seeing that one afterwards. So was there anything, Justin, that you thought in that sort of that old bit of timeline, there was anything that grabbed you?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Vanessa. I mean, they have added some layers to Logan, and I apologize, people. I've been very ill, so I've watched this episode once. But I mean, just what Vanessa said, it rings so true to me, especially because they're layering their characters. Logan is not just this dickhead. We actually see, because that's a 5 years before. Correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm sure you people will in the chat. I think that what we see originally is the 5 years before they venture into the park is when Logan and young William are going to go glad hand with them, and then those events. So I was really happy to see events before their first venture into the park. But it was really interesting to see Logan as the one that had this original spark of enthusiasm. it wasn't, we always took him as a guy that's just like, it's just business and all this. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys further elaborate on this, but we saw a spark, almost Elon Musk type, feeling out of Logan, in my opinion. Yes, he did try the goods, as Logan is known to try the goods, test the goods. But you definitely, they invoked empathy. You feel for him, and you can kind of see his side of things. He wasn't always just a straight up dickhead in a way. But yeah, I love that they're tying everything together and everything matters. A lot of people are saying that was a filler episode. It's really hard to have a filler episode in Westworld, in my opinion, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think for me that it was fascinating on a couple of levels. Firstly, we learned so much about what the early days were like, that we learned that they kept this completely secret. So Logan was an investor for a huge company looking at high-tech stuff, and he had no idea quite how advanced they were. So they kept this incredibly tight until Delos came in with their investment. That was the first thing that I thought was fascinating. The second, I couldn't agree with you more, Justin. I found that the shift in Logan was really dramatic. First of all, he was seeing it as an investor, and then he was seeing this as a sort of a theme park, a fun thing to have, and he saw that as being the money. We saw the difference between him and William, who saw a better way to leverage this to get money out of it, that I'm sure we'll come on to in a moment. But then we get this moment a few years later, we don't know exactly how much later, when it is James Delos's retirement party, as they called it. And there it was very clear that Logan seems to be the person who could see what was going on in the way that others couldn't. And he was saying, enjoy your forever, in this kind of really quite layered approach. It was still him. He was still indulging. He was clearly drinking. It looked like he was shooting up. I know there's lots of people who were suggesting that perhaps he was injecting himself with some sort of life-saving drugs because of a virus, but he was certainly out there drinking away his sorrows about what was going on. So I thought that was really good. Vanessa, do you have any other thoughts on the Logan character, and whether we're going to see more of him in the season coming ahead?
Well, we've seen bits and pieces from the trailer, so I know we'll see him at least once more, because we have that shot of him kind of laid out in the desert, after his naked horse ride at the last time they went in the park on vacation. So we'll see kind of his rescue. And he has actually done an interview recently where he hinted that we'll see a little bit more about the family dynamic and some of the behind the scenes things that have kind of gotten him to the point that we saw him last with Dolores, where he's just kind of broken. So I think we'll definitely see at least a little bit more from him this season.
Excellent. And I agree. I think that we will see, perhaps this season is going to be the season where we see the actual proper genesis of this plan that Delos have got, and how that came about with Logan, who clearly there was the shot in the original trailer of him and James Delos walking away from him beside the pool, and that seemed to be some sort of a break going on there. James Delos certainly didn't seem very happy. So yes, I think we will see more of him. I don't know whether that's going to be after that point in time or whether that's going to be looking back. I suspect it will. I think, having confidently predicted that this season would be the season where they're not going to be playing with our minds with all these timelines, I think that actually they're probably going to be throwing in way more than they did even last time. I think they're going to be jumping about all over the place just to keep us on our toes. Okay, so that's that. And I think we'll come back to the end of that timeline with the bit when we saw William and Dolores there, and those sort of big earth movers. We'll come back to that in a moment, because that obviously ties in with some of the other timelines that we've got. But let's just pick up on William much later in the present day timeline, the sort of the after the massacre timeline, when he's there as the Man in Black, and he picks up Lawrence, and then he goes to Pariah, this city that we last saw as being this sort of den of iniquity, this place of wonderful delights that were there all over the place, and we get this great scene when we get the bandits who've taken over the place. Vanessa, is there anything? What particularly struck you about that? I think that obviously Ford is trying to speak to the Man in Black through this, but what really struck you about that?
Well, first, the amazing cameo by Giancarlo Esposito, that was fantastic. I mean, I don't think anyone knew that was coming. They hadn't released anything about him being in the show, so that was really cool to see. He did a fantastic job. It'd be nice to see him again. I don't know that we will, but no, I really, what I thought was really most interesting about that, and I watched your kind of deep dive recap, where you talked about the elephant anecdote and how it's really kind of alluding to the hosts, even though they're free, they're still stuck in this routine of going through the motions of doing these narratives, and they don't really know what to do with themselves. Basically, they're just kind of stuck. And so that really, I didn't even really think about it in those terms, but I think you're completely right that was just showing how when you get trained to do a certain thing, it's hard to like break out of that. So I'm interested to see, how that's going to play out. Even though the hosts are, technically free, I suppose they don't all have consciousness. I think Evan Rachel Wood has said in interviews that there's like an array of different levels of consciousness going on right now. So, who knows who really is in control of their own destiny at this point. So I think we'll see some conflict there. And it's really fascinating to see what happens when you're kind of off the leash, but you really, you have no kind of motivation or any kind of knowledge of what to do from this point without someone, you've been pretty much enslaved all this time, and now you don't know how to take control of your life. So it's really interesting to kind of see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think just on the hosts, it seems that the majority, perhaps even the vast majority of hosts, they've been freed from their narrative. So they're not having to go through that same loop again that they always had to go through, but they've still got their same character, which is why we see all the bit part characters, like you got the stable hand in episode 1 who was there, coming in asking if people wanted to get a horse ride to somewhere. We saw that so the Confederados are still there doing their sort of like macho stuff, ditto. Or the bandits, you see all of these characters have got their same character, but they've just been released from their loops and their narrative. So they're just sort of playing out what would happen with that character. And then they don't really know what to do with themselves because they've not yet got this self-awareness that right. Dolores has got, that Bernard and Maeve have got. So that's actually the big problem. And I think we'll see this more and more as we go through the season, that is the big problem that Dolores will have in trying to get an army, in trying to get a whole sort of woke nation, as it were, because the vast majority of them are like those elephants that are sort right. of, they're tied to a stake that they could pull up, but they just don't think about it.
And does she even want them to be free? I mean, at least right now, it seems like it would be more to her benefit for her plan to be able just to command them to do what she wants, instead of having to deal with all of these different personalities and different like conflicting ideas of how to move forward. It would be easier to say, okay, well, this is what you're going to do, and have them follow her orders. So it's just like kind of Maeve brought up last episode, do you feel free to Teddy? Because he's still just following along in her footstep, being her little loyal dog, like he's always kind of been. So, I think we're going to see at some point Dolores is going to have a conflict about, I'm all for freedom, but what happens when that freedom conflicts with my goals?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that this is perhaps a sort of a two-step thing for Dolores. Is that right now? Yes, I think I would agree with you that there's not this great need for her to have all these hosts who have free will and understanding of who they are. But in the longer term, she said in episode 1 that her plan effectively is to take the mainland. And if she's going to do that, she can't do that if there's only 3 of these completely self-aware hosts. She needs to do something, which I think is where we're going to get onto with the whole flood idea and the glory and all the rest of it. And I think when she says it was in various times, not everyone is worthy to get there, that's her saying, actually, you know what, not everyone can get to that. Justin, is there anything you want to add on to this idea?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to this. I mean, I love the whole elephant analogy or metaphor that they give out. But, as far as Teddy goes, I mean, I almost thought that we were joking about the whiteboard that they were going to pull out to like show like, you know, like everything that was happening. I almost thought that's exactly what they were going to do when they got into that facility. Of course, I'm joking a little bit, but it almost was. They had to walk him through, you know, I mean, these slides of him being dead really show him. Dolores is privy to information, so is Maeve, that the others aren't. So we can't expect them, just because they're not tied to their narrative loops anymore, to have this overwhelming influx of knowledge that they're not privy to. How would they, unless Ford programmed that in? You know what I mean? So they only know what they know. They're now acting with free will, but they don't have access to information until they gain that information themselves. So why would they, you know, have the same drive or the same knowledge that Dolores has, unless Ford programmed in, which he obviously did not. I enjoyed the Pariah scene because it kind of was like a little bit of inside baseball with Lazo's his counterpart. You know, it showed us how he is played by multiple people. You know, in season 1, that was a big thing, is, well, how's he, you know, Lawrence, and how's he Lazo? Well, you get to see, you know, the other Lazo. He even says, don't you remember? You used to be him. I love that part. You know, I think it really comes down to is that, you know, yeah, how many people do you have to enslave to assure freedom? And I think that there's going to be a conflict. Maeve is going to run into a conflict not of the same nature, but she's going to run into a situation with finding her daughter, and Dolores is going to run into a situation with her method that is going to cause them to, you know, combine and, you know, in join together and kind of mix their ideologies and get this thing right. Because Dolores is, you know, she's quoting Jesus, but then she's also killing them, and then at their Last Supper scene, and resurrecting them, in, you know, for her own means. So what is truly freedom? Is, you know, and what is it worth the cost? You know what I mean? So how much coercion needs to be done? I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth picking up on the religious imagery, because it's really ramped up this episode. There was some in the first episode. Episode 2, there was huge amounts. There was that the Confederados, for those who didn't spot it, were arranged in a like Da Vinci's Last Supper. Dolores talks about glory. She talks about the Valley Beyond. There's this whole almost Old Testament-y feeling of leading the people to freedom. So that's very much something that I think is going to keep on ramping up through the season. The question for me is where that goes, because the implication is that there is, if we're talking about glory, so within the Christian sort of lexicon, that the glory would be after what happens after you die. And so my question is whether or not this is linked into what looked like within that flood a whole load of dead hosts. Now, whether they actually are dead or not is a slightly bigger question, but it's what happens beyond. It's the valley beyond that they're going to. So that's just a sort of a little bit of speculation. But can I just like throw a slight curveball at you guys, because there's in Ford's game, his new game for the Man in Black, we've seen a huge amount of build up to this, and he's clearly trying to get him somewhere on a personal mission. That was the whole point about all the bandits shooting each other. But he says, I'll see you there, I'll see you at the end. Is this a literal Ford saying, I will see you? Or are we just seeing things that Ford has programmed in before he died? And he is just trying to guide him through with stuff that he decided before. Vanessa, that's probably a slightly unfair question on you, but what's your take on what Ford is actually doing here?
Well, my initial thought was that because Ford obviously came to believe that the hosts could become conscious and that it was wrong to be doing all of the horrible things they were doing to them. And William had that same kind of mindset when he first got to the park. And with all of the, you know, beginning where you end and end where you began, my thought with that was that Ford was trying to get William back to that mindset he had when he first came to the park, that these hosts could be sentient, and it was wrong to treat them the way we were treating them, and see if he could get back to the kind of that white hat character that he was in the beginning. and repent of the horrible things that he has done over the course of his tenure with Delos, and rectifying the wrongs he's done. And obviously, he talked about going to the place of his greatest mistake, and I think that was one of Ford's goals, is to lead him to whatever this was. I mean, I'm assuming Ford may have known about the secret goings on. So, if his intent is to get him to fix things and help the hosts become free. But my question is, so, we see that scene where William is like holding the gun to his head, old William. So is the end goal like he needs to die as well to usher in this new era of the hosts being able to kind of take over? I'm really curious as to what that his end game looks like. Is he going to be able to live on, or does he need to be taken out of the game completely as well? So it's something that I've been thinking about and wondering how that's going to play out on the show.
Absolutely. Justin, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. If we remember season 1, the epic scene with him with MIB, Teddy and Ford in the bar, where he says, "If you finally given me a worthy adversary," I think that worthy adversary is himself. The MIB is his own worthy adversary. He has to overcome. He needs to find himself. This is all about reflection, with all the symbolism with the water and all that. That he can't have these. I think that Ford has just got a fail safe on these other hosts that they cannot help, him, and he needs to do this on his own. This is his own personal journey to his center, and that his adversary is definitely himself. I feel that he holds the key to the same thing that Dolores, and we'll talk about whatever we think that is later, is trying to find as well. In that him, like I said before, the only thing I think that's brought up in an earlier stream, what could that mean? If you're putting a gun to your head and you're using that as like that's your ace card or your spade or whatever, that's your way to stop somebody from doing something, then your life and your knowledge has to mean something. Because if you're just a dick, they're gonna be like, pull the trigger, dick, we don't care. So obviously he's needed for something, and so he's on a journey to find himself, and I think Ford foresees this, and also he is a key to whatever this door, whatever this weapon is. And I think it's just these hosts have Stockholm syndrome as well. They only know what they know. Dolores has seen the outside world. Others haven't. Others have been heavy-handedly shown it. So it's just very, very interesting. And I love how they're tying together these timelines. But yeah, the adversary is him. And I think that, we can speculate on what this weapon or what this tool or whatever he built was. But the big takeaway is how much control William really had over the park. He's able to build things that I believe Ford had to know of, but even Bernard, who was, built 20 years after that event, didn't know about. So, I mean, it's just a level of access that I really didn't know that William had. And we're seeing
Bernard only got to know what Ford wanted him to know. So,
yeah, and who knows how many times it was erased, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I should just want to give a quick shout out to. I see we've got some excellent creators out there in the chat there. So hi Heidi, Costume CEO. Please do go and check out her channel if you're at all interested in costumes and how they impact on the show and the character. I see Hax Dogma out there as well, who was on here last week. Do please check out his channel. He does some excellent Westworld stuff. And AU Packmule, who I've also had on here before. So hi guys, great to see all of you. And the reason why is that I saw Costume CEO just said the words inward journey. And for me, I think that is the key to what actually is happening here with the Man in Black and what Ford is trying to do. He is trying to take Ford on an inward journey. It's not just trying to get him to a physical place. I think he is trying to take him on a journey back to where he used to be, back to the person that he was. The beginning where you ended and end where you begin, I think is a personal journey, in the same way that the maze was a personal journey for Dolores to get to where she needed to be. This, I think, is a personal journey for the Man in Black to get back to where he needs to be. So I think that's entirely right, Heidi. I think there is an internal journey, but there is a physical endpoint that both he and Dolores are physically heading towards. Now, let's get on to that, because I think that is probably the thing which has generated the most conversation in this episode. What is it that is Delos's plan, and what is William, or was young William's plan. Let's start off, I think, looking at the data, because and what they're gathering, and why, how William originally pitched it to James Delos. Vanessa, did you want to sort of start off this? What did we learn extra in this episode about what Delos's plan was? And we'll come on to sort of the Earth Diggers in a moment, but in terms of what their plan is, what did we learn extra this time?
So William, his pitch was basically, we spend all this money on marketing trying to figure out what people really want, but they don't even know what they really want, and this place is going to show them. Being able to be free and think no one's really watching you, and you can kind of be who you really are and do what you really want to do without fear of repercussion, and being able to gather that data and store it and kind of look through it and see what a person is really like and what their true desires really are when they're not having to pretend to be somebody else, to placate the people around them. So that's really what he pitched. And it's tough because, I guess I understand the value in that, but, trying to reconcile, why do you need that information long term, especially when they're also collecting DNA? It's like, what are you actually going to do with this? And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, you could use it to blackmail, powerful people and leverage that to get what you want in the world. And I kind of get that because it goes along with the movie. You have the Westworld movie, and then you have Future World, and that kind of goes along with how the movies went. But I don't think that Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy are trying to replicate the movies exactly. So they might draw bits and pieces and inspiration from it, but I feel like they've got kind of a deeper game going on than just, what looks to be on the surface a way to blackmail people or just use that data for marketing purposes. There's got to be something more sinister behind it. So, I'll let you guys kind of speak your piece on what you think about it, but I have some thoughts about, what they're really trying to do.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to those thoughts. Justin, what's your take on what extra we learned this time around?
Well, we learned quite a bit. And I definitely agree with Vanessa, and it's so refreshing to hear people talk about they are not. They literally probably could have got away with not even crediting Westworld at all if it wasn't for the actual just scenery. They just took the original base premise of robots within a world, and that was it. They stopped. They talked about this numerous times in interviews. You know how I am about that, and they are not following this. If they're going to follow the future world blueprint, then they're following a dumpster fire blueprint, number one, in my opinion. So I don't think they're going to go there. Now we have to think about, we learned so much, and I love James Delos's character. I also like to learn that Logan is English. So that was a neat little tidbit for me. They weren't hiding his Scottish accent or by any means off point, but whatever. And what we had to think about was what he was pitching to James Delos his actual idea. What is the legitimacy of what he was pitching? Of course, I think it's kind of a social commentary, of what's going on today, like Westworld is known to do, with Facebook and all this data collection. I think there's a little bit of that. But we also have to think about the type of people that go into Westworld. All these powerful people, these are the people that are the masters of the fine print. Do you really think that anybody that goes in the Westworld, it is not fine print? I've done the whole PDF, of the terms and conditions. It's very clear that everything you do in there is just theirs, highly monitored. Your DNA, your stories at the Mesa bar, everything is there. So nobody of any intellect that should have rose to any type of powerful position, especially within this shady business world, should go in there thinking, well, anything I do in here is going to be under wrap. Then those people, I can't see them being, of any significance in the real world to begin with. So we have to think about what they're promising. They're promising a mixture of two things. For them to be, not judged by this higher power, but also it's pretty clear they're being judged by Delos. In the terms and conditions, it's almost like, yeah, we're going to be recording everything you do. We will own you. So I think it's a mixture of that they're escaping their afterlife to a point by this mixture of keeping them alive. So it's almost like they don't have to pay for their sins in this, whether you believe in it or not, in this hypothetical afterlife, but they may have to pay for it in this life. So are they signing away their control? And this is just a whatever, made up on the spot theory of their actual human existence, their natural existence, the Delos, in order to escape this hypothetical judgment from a higher being. There's a lot they give us in these scenes. One more thing I'll add is that there's a huge. They make sure to showcase that Ford and even though you don't see them in the same room, and James Delos are not on the same page whatsoever when he walks by him and says anything but Chopin. You know what I mean? Like that's just a straight dig at Ford right there, just to show us. And why would they put that line in there if it wasn't for they want to show that they are not on the same page when it comes to any of their ideas. And obviously James Delos is sick, so I mean, everything points to data collection and immortality, but it's Westworld. It has to be bigger than this. And like Vanessa said, if it's going to end up like Future World, then I'm going to stop watching right now. And I love the show, but I can't see them following that narrative directly. They take very little from the original movies. So I think we just need to wait and see. I think that it's a mixture between almost selling your soul to Delos, other than the risk of selling it to this higher power, if that makes any type of sense. So, yeah, I don't see him going the Future World way.
Okay, I mean, I think some really interesting thoughts there from both of you. Thank you for that. That's great. For me, I think what we've learned in this episode is that it is about getting the information about people. It's not about building the new technology. Clearly, Delos as an organization, they've used and utilized this technology, but as Vanessa said, the pitch was about information. It's about understanding people. It's about the understanding of the people who come into the park and what it is that they really want. Now, at a very basic level, there are huge amounts of ways that you can make money off of this. It sounds quite flippant, but it is the Facebook model. You get information about what people actually want and like, and then you sell it on to someone else. That's one way that you can make money out of this, but there are lots and lots of other ways that you can make money out of this. I think personally, combined with the fact that we've had hints from the start that this was about making models or making clones or hosts of real people, that I think that has to come back again. And we saw that not just in the fact that we got Bernard, who is, as far as we know, an exact copy, and he certainly looks like an exact copy in not just in his physical looks, but in his mannerisms of Arnold. But also we see that in the child Ford and Ford's parents, his father and his brother that were there, and those appear to have been a gift from Arnold to Ford. So right from the very early days, this was about, at least partly, about recreating humans, specific humans. So I think that, combined with the fact that we know they're collecting their DNA, we know they're collecting their thoughts, ideas, how they think, and video recordings of everything they're doing, that seems to imply to me that there is an element here of copying humans. And I think that has to be something. Everything we know is that this is against, with outside of the knowledge and understanding of the people who are being copied. So I'll in a moment I'll just throw over to Vanessa to see whether she wants to build on it. She was teasing us with having more ideas beyond what she said already. But I just want to come up. We had a super chat, so I just want to say thank you, CPBC123, which is not an easy thing to say. Saying, hey guys, do you believe firstly that Charlotte Hale is the child of either Arnold or Maeve? And do you believe that Delos knew about Ford's plans all along? I think, Justin, I'll probably throw to you on this one. In terms of the second half about whether I believe that Delos knew about Ford's plans all along, in terms of Ford's plans that we've just seen with the massacre and the host rebellion, no, I don't think Delos knew about that. I think that they were very worried he was going to do something. I think they could see lots of signs. I think that's why Charlotte was desperately trying to get rid of him and was going there trying to tell him not to throw all his toys out of the pram. I think those are all signs that they thought he might be up to something, but they didn't know what it was. Do I believe that Charlotte Hale is the child of either Arnold or Maeve? I don't think we've had enough information to suggest that she is at the moment. I think that we have to assume that she is who she looks like she is. but it is Westworld. They could throw a curveball at us. I don't think she is, but she could be. But Justin, did you have any thoughts on either of those two quick questions?
Firstly, going to was Ford and Delos, like both aware of each other's master plans. I think to a point, he mentions you got to get acquainted with the devil, to play God and things like that. I don't think that they knew that they were both holding cards. There's no way that Ford probably didn't know about this data mining. There were certain things that were allowed, but I don't think either revealed their full hands at any point. They just had enough on each other that it was like mutual destruction, assured mutual destruction. So you got to believe that, it would just be ignorant to think that Ford was not aware of this, this drone host facility and things like that, when he just knows, everything down to where Teresa was sitting as a child. Now on to the very fun theory, and I'm sure it gets a lot of views. No, I don't. With the whole Charlotte Hale, why couldn't she be anybody? So why couldn't she be just anybody that we've ever seen's kid in Westworld? I don't know. Those are the type of theories I just don't like. There's no reason for it. Doesn't further the narrative. They're already making her more of a sympathetic character, showing that the big bad is Delos because they're not extracting her until that package is. She's dispensable. I don't know which one was right. Yeah. So, whatever. I don't know. Maybe she's my kid. Who knows? Give me 100K. I don't mean to be rude about it, but I think they're fun, but it's like, what? There's no substance to that. Play with the anagrams all you want, but I don't know. Doesn't do anything for my narrative.
Fair enough.
No child support for me. Not paying for her.
Vanessa, any quick thoughts on that before you reveal your grand understanding of what's really going on?
I don't know about that, but no, as far as Delos and Ford, I definitely think Ford knew. Ford made a point to know everything about everything. So I find it hard to believe they would be able to keep too much a secret from him. He's always seemed to be one step ahead of everyone. But as far as Delos knowing Ford's plan, I don't think anyone really knew Ford's ultimate plan of setting the host free, because we didn't know it. He gave every indication that he did not think much of the hosts, that they were just tools. He didn't seem to have any great affection for them, put them through all the suffering. So I think it would be hard for anyone to think that his ultimate goal is to free them. So I don't think that it kind of went both ways. I think it was more on Ford's part knowing things than Delos. But and then as far as Charlotte being anyone's daughter, I think she's just who she says she is. And I've seen some people make the comment that, how could someone that young and a woman be in charge of this big corporation? I just find that hard to believe. And that kind of bothers me a little bit, because if you're a smart, ambitious, hardworking person, why couldn't you, make your way to the top? And I'm hoping 30 plus years in the future, however far ahead they're supposed to be, that someone of her caliber would be able to make her own way without being someone's daughter or niece or whatever. So I don't hold to that theory at all. And I did see someone made a comment about two little girls being at the party at the mansion and wondering if maybe Charlotte was one of those. But no, the two little girls were Emily, William's daughter, that approached Dolores, and then the other little girl that was walking through was actually Lawrence's daughter. She was one of the little hosts walking through the party. So I just wanted to make sure to clarify that.
That's really good clarification. I have to admit, I didn't even spot the other little girl, so that's a good spot. And I incidentally, I agree on the Charlotte point. I think that there should be no reason why in 30 years or 30 something years why an incredibly talented 30 something year old woman should be rising to that, because today there are incredibly talented 30-year-old men and women who reach huge heights. I think that is entirely possible. Added to which, even if we were to say that maybe she's a little bit older than that, I think that the technology that we've got from Delos that we've seen does seem to imply that you can prolong life in some way. So it might be that another element is that she actually is a little bit older than she looks, but she's just been using the technology to sort of keep herself young.
She's in her mid-30s. It's not. It's what is so crazy. I'm not even trying to pander or anything, but seriously, it's this shit happens every day today. Like, it's not something that should even be like, well, how could that woman of this ethnic woman become powerful? No, what, she's like, what, 34, 35? I mean, come on, people. I mean, whatever. Fun theory. Kind of a racist theory, but hey, I mean, whatever. I was never supportive of it, and now Vanessa made me even angry about it. So yeah.
Sorry.
No. I'm happy to be.
Excellent. We know you're happy to be angry, Justin. This is one of the things we love about you. Okay, so let's come on to the sort of the thing that I think has probably prompted the most questions and theorizing out of this episode, which is, what is this thing at the end? This we see in the 30-ish years ago timeline, we see William show Dolores this master plan. When you get these huge earth movers, they seem to be digging something. We don't know what it is, but his implication is that this is his master plan. And then we see that this is something that Dolores seems to be referring to as a weapon. It seems to be the thing that in the future, or the current timeline, if you like, the Man in Black seems to be referring to as his greatest mistake. I've had one of my patrons, Susan Dunkel, was talking about the fact that perhaps this is a dam. This is a sort of an insurance policy that he built. What the Earth Movers were doing was they had the sea and they dammed it all up, and so that the idea that this is you get some kind of fail-safe mechanism that gets all of the hosts into one place, and then the dam can be triggered and they all get flooded and die. So that's one idea. What do you think? Who should we go to? Whoever speaks first can answer this one.
I got some thoughts. So just to start off with, I wanted just to bring up the whole all of the terminology that they're using: glory, the valley beyond. I know Lawrence referenced the pearly gates, and it all seems to be pointing to the same thing. And so, that all seems to bring to mind, heaven, like our heaven, where, if you're, a good person, your soul is destined to ultimately go to heaven and you're going to live forever. So there's, because of all this religious imagery, I definitely think immortality is kind of the end goal that they're working toward. And, if you think about in terms of going to heaven, supposedly, your soul will go there and you'll get a brand new body and it'll be perfect. And, there will be no disease and no one will die and you'll live on forever. So all of that makes me think that that's their goal. You're going to get this fresh new body that's perfect, that will not age and you will not die and you can live on forever. So I think that is their goal. As far as the weapon, that's something that I've really kind of struggled with. Like, what could this weapon be? Because I don't think it's any kind of traditional weapon. You mentioned like doing the flood thing. That just doesn't seem right to me. It's just not kind of triggering any thoughts about like, that sounds like it's what they're actually moving toward. I have a couple of thoughts about what it could possibly be, and if you bring in this whole immortality thing and transferring your consciousness into like a host body, one would be, my couple of thoughts would be, is there some way has Delos planned a way to like be able to control all of these people once they're transferred? Because I'm supposing that they've developed a way to map your consciousness and transfer it over, but obviously all of the hosts that exist in the park, you can control their personalities by tweaking different aspects of their programming. And so is that something that's going to happen with humans that end up in a host body? Is there some way to take over and like basically like mind control? Is there some way to make them do what you want? Is that something that there was their end goal? And is that something that, Dolores could possibly use against them? Are there actually hosts living as humans out in the real world that she'll be able to, take control of and have them help her in her ongoing rebellion against the humans? So that's one thing I was pondering. And the other question I had about being able to transfer consciousness what would that actually do to a person's mind? Is because I have a hard time believing that that would be a seamless transition. It seems like it might be kind of a scary thing to be transferred into this body and not know, is this really me thinking these things? Am I being manipulated by someone else? What kind of struck me, I remember seeing in one of the trailers, there's a shot of James Delos, and his face is all bloody, and he's got like a shard of, I think, a broken mirror up to his throat. And I'm thinking, so did they transfer him into this host, and it's just made him go insane? So that's something I've been thinking about. I mean, maybe they do have people that have already been transferred, and Dolores, if she can't control them, she might be able to make them go crazy. And I don't know. It's just it's tough to figure out what it really is, but I do think it has something to do with the way to immortality that they've been planning.
Absolutely. I think I'd agree that immortality is clearly part of what is going on here. Justin, I'm going to throw to you in a moment, but if you could incorporate in your answer to what on earth is going on here. Catherine Bassett with a super chat. Thank you so much. That's very kind, saying, could the weapon be an on or off switch? I think presumably for the hosts themselves. So what do you make of that, and what are your thoughts more broadly on what it is that's going on there?
On or off switch, I would have to. It seems like they've already overcame that with the tech, with the control, with the backdoor, and so on. So I would have to disagree with that. But I mean, not completely. We have to think, what did young William see as his greatest accomplishment in such an ambitious Westworld-esque thing? That not to just answer the question that nobody had to answer to ask the question that nobody's ever asked. I mean, that's just crazy complex to throw at us. It makes it 10 times harder. But what did he see as this huge accomplishment? Now see the character, the MIB, see that he would see as a complete disaster, and that Dolores sees as a weapon. What would the young William see as this huge accomplishment now that he sees as a disaster with the events we've seen so far? I think we're gonna have to see a little bit more. The only idea, and it's a very, very tinfoil theory, is that I think that, like, if they really want to escape, they're obviously trying to gather troops and all that to escape, but there's been, a lot of theories out there that Bernard is actually infused with real human DNA, that they're more biologically like us than they are like than they are like, traditional robots and things like that. So is this like some type of way to merge them, like kind of like Vanessa was saying, whether you want to refer to it as digital ascension or not? So she sees it as a weapon because then there's no way to tell the difference between them. The Man in Black, I would take it as that his end goal is in this show, kind of the end goal is to show that they don't have to be human for us to care, or for them to matter. So maybe this is some type of a facility that merges them to be human, where he sees that now with the progress that they've made, there's no need for that. If that makes sense. I don't think it's a dam or anything like that, because the fact is that they don't need oxygen to live. So I mean, that's not really like a fail safe at all. So I mean, I just think, we can speculate, and we don't have enough information. I think it really lies into what is something that is progress that the Man in Black sees as something that is destructive. That is what we need to think about, and we don't have the information yet to say. And how does Dolores see it as a weapon? That's all I got. I mean, maybe, hey, just like Westworld, I don't know how satisfying that is right now, but that's part of the fun. I don't think, without going way too tinfoily, that we could go any further than that. At least I cannot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got, in all honesty, I don't think if anyone says they know exactly what is going on here, then they're lying, unless they're one of the writers, because it is. We've got some clues, and I think we've got some very strong clues, but I don't think we have enough yet from what we've seen to know exactly what's going on. The clues that I think are quite important are the fact that this is clearly something which is happening without the knowledge of the guests. So the idea that they are selling stuff to the guests, that for me is way out. This is something that Delos themselves, maybe even Delos himself and William, and just this very small group of people are knowing about and wanting to happen. The fact that they seem to be building a big thing This isn't about somewhere to house the data, whatever it is. They're using huge earth movers. I like the idea of there being a dam, which is what created the flood, that you can sort of like flood an area nice and easily. But I don't think that was what it was as being the weapon or the greatest mistake. I think that the clues that we've got, or the path that we're being led down to think, and we always have to be just quite careful, because obviously we don't have to go exactly the path that we're being led down to think, but I think we're being led to think that they are trying to create humans or hosts based on specific humans because of the information that they're gathering. That does seem to imply that that is what they're doing. And that, for me, I think leaves a couple of options. If they're building somewhere big, this is to house either a lot of hosts, and they seem to always be making hosts, incidentally. I don't know whether anyone picks up on this, but whenever we were looking in season one, there always seemed to be a new host being made. Where are they going? What's going on there? Because there seemed to be a finite amount of them. But anyway, that's by the by. Either lots of hosts who they have yet to release, or the future world plot, if you like, which is that they have been substituting the guests for real humans. Now, for hosts going out. Now, either of those, I think you could argue, is both a weapon and potentially a greatest mistake, because you either have some sort of control center controlling hosts out there in the real world, or you have got a whopping great big army of hosts that Dolores might be able to free. So I think either of those could fit what we've been told so far. But I think go ahead.
Sorry, I just had a thought while you were talking. So what if he's building this facility for experimentation? So, if the end goal is achieving immortality through being able to transfer your consciousness, what if they're replicating all of these guests using their DNA and taking their experiences in the park to kind of map their experiences and their personality and transfer them into these hosts to see if it's even possible to replicate that? And that could be an amazing, if they have this enormous facility full of all these, cloned people as hosts. Dolores could definitely use that as a weapon, because she could increase her strength and her army if she's able to, commandeer them and control them. Just, I don't know, it just came to me as you were talking. I'm like, that, maybe that's what they're doing there.
Yeah.
Also really quick, we had to look at why, like it was just stated, I forget who just said it, sorry, the upper respiratory antibiotics here. But you were talking about how they, have kept making new hosts and where are they sending them? Why have they had hosts like Dolores and Angela like around for so long? I mean, if they can transfer the memories anyways, why have they chosen to keep the likeness of these hosts around for so long, each and every single one of them? If they're making new hosts every single day, what's the reasoning behind that? What could that achieve, other than familiarity, in some sort of, outside scheme of duplicating somebody? I mean, if they're making hosts every single day, why has Dolores been upgraded so many times? There has to be an importance of keeping the likeness of these hosts, if that makes any sense. So that's definitely playing into this, because it just doesn't fiscally even make sense.
I mean, for me, that is a thing that Ford was in control of. He was in control of who these specific hosts were in the narratives in the park. So I think that would be a thing that Ford says, no, I'm going to have a Dolores host. I'm going to have an Abernathy host. I'm going to have whatever, because they're important to the plots, the narratives that we've got. So I think where I would sort of end off this little sort of train of thought is I think clearly immortality is part of this in some way. Logan hints at it, says enjoy your forever. Now there is and perhaps in a moment I'm going to ask you, I saw Jeff Burst, another one of my patrons, raising the idea of there being a virus, which I know a lot of people have come up with this idea, but what if the question, if you're going to go completely crazy and megalomaniac, is what if I could live forever and be in control of everything around me? That for me sounds to be the kind of world that, if we're following this clues that, again, we don't necessarily believe all of the clues we're being given, but if we're following it, if you can create all of the world around you, people who are looking like and acting like the real things. And if you can have enough host technology in you to give you immortality, then you can actually be ruling your own world and being in charge of absolutely everything. So that for me is where it seems to be going right now. As I say, I don't think we've got all of the information that we need in order to understand completely what's going on, but that seems to be roughly where we're going. In a moment, we'll take a quick pause, but did either of you want to come in on this idea that there's a virus? There's a virus that's infecting humanity somehow. And this idea comes from the fact that both we saw James Delos with the mystery cough that obviously in every TV drama, when you get a main character coughing, you know that they've got some incurable disease. And
Sorry.
Thanks, Justin. And then we also saw Logan, who my initial instinct, as I'm sure everyone else's, was that he looked like he was shooting up. But some people said, what if he was injecting himself with some drugs to stop him getting this fatal disease? Do either of you want to pick up on this idea that there has been some disease which has gone around and sort of ravaged humanity?
I'll just. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just, I like it, and I think that my co-hosts and again, I didn't. Apologies to everybody I work with. I did not get to watch any of your videos this week. I know Hacks is a big tech guy, and we'll have our after show later. I think this is one of his main theories. I might be wrong, whatever. But I kind of think that the line about how we've cured every disease, and I think that it's just kind of counterproductive. It doesn't match, because why is that line of dialogue in the first season if there is this disease? Maybe there was at one point, and Delos did solve it, but I don't see how that plays into now. That's all I'll say.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Ford already said they cured every disease, and just hammered home the point in the first season that the only thing they didn't cure was death. So that also makes me think that that's why they're searching for this immortality via host. But yeah, I do think Logan was just shooting up. I mean, you look at his face, you can look at his eyes. I mean, he's very glassy-eyed. He definitely looks like he's high on something. So I definitely think he's just coping with the trauma that he's endured by medicating himself with any kind of drugs that he can get his hands on. So I don't think that
heroin.
Exactly. And I don't think that bodes well for his character. I know we haven't seen him in the present time. I know some people think we might. My personal feeling is that he is no longer with us in the present timeline because of his addiction. But yeah, the virus thing, I don't know. I don't think that, maybe, like you said, it was something that was an issue back then. But honestly, no one seemed too concerned about James Delos' cough. Like, William didn't seem like, oh gosh, get away from me, you're gonna get me sick. I mean, I think it was more, maybe he had like lung cancer or something, some kind of incurable disease. Not necessarily a virus that could transmit to other people, but just something within himself, because it seemed like he was the only person that was truly worried about getting the problem resolved. So I don't know.
Yeah, and we do have that line of dialogue also where the gentleman is trying to thank the man in black, in the current timeline of season 1 for helping his daughter with cancer, I believe. So obviously there's still an issue of the means to cure some diseases and stuff like that at some point. And this, I believe, was 20 some years ago, because we see a Juliet, and his daughter and so on. So I think that, the disease might play into it, but I think it comes down to more of people either wanting to be judged by this mythical god above, or are they going to want to be judged by Delos? Because again, the people that are going there, I just did the inflation calculator. It's like still comes out to $17,000 a day in our money. That's still not everybody can go. These are not the type of people that are going to skip over that fine print. They have to be pretty much signing over their judgment to Delos, other than the threat of going up to the pearly gates and having every sin, or however you want to look at it, counted. So it's too hard to say at this point.
Absolutely, and I think I agree with everything that both of you said there. For me, there may well be a virus, but I think that the whole narrative that we've been told is that Delos and their technology has eliminated disease and all the rest of it, and the one last thing that they've got to conquer is death. And I think that's heavy foreshadowing as to what their big plans are. So I don't think that there is a virus that's spread out amongst humanity. I don't think we've seen any hints of that whatsoever. I think, on the contrary, I think we've seen hints that Delos have been curing these things, and that certainly seemed to be part of the subtext of the conversation between James Delos and William at that party, was that one of their plans was to be allowing him to conquer it somehow, whether that's through medicine or through, as Vanessa was hinting, and I actually agree quite strongly, that he probably does somehow transfer his consciousness into a host, and it doesn't go particularly well, or he uses a lot of that technology in some way, and it doesn't quite fit. But I think the subtext is that they're going to be using this technology that they've been getting from Westworld to be saving James Delos in some way. Okay, guys, so I'm going to take a very quick pause now. Just I saw Susan Dunkel just arrived in the chat. Susan, I hope you were here for your question that you put to me on Patreon being answered. If not, it was literally about 5 minutes before you joined. So do feel free to go and have a look at the video again afterwards to see our answers to that one when we were talking about the dam. But I just wanted to let people know what's going on with my channel and a few things for my patrons. As you know, I'm focusing a lot of my time on Westworld right now. These pre-show live streams will be happening every Sunday at the same time. That's I can't remember what time it is. 5 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday through the season. We've got some great guests coming up. The quality of the guests, as you've seen today, is incredibly high, and also, within 24 hours of each episode, I'm doing my breakdown and my explained video, and then probably one more video each week going forward. I've not given up on Game of Thrones. I'm going to be carrying on doing that. The Traveler's Guides are still coming out. And patrons, you voted on a video topic for me to be doing this month, and that was, what was it that Varys heard in the flames early on in his life? Whose voice was it? What did he hear? And so I'm going to be doing a video on that. Hopefully that's going to be released later on this week. So that's something for you to be looking forward to. But guys, let's go first of all to Justin. Is there anything you particularly want to be telling people about stuff you've got coming up?
Yeah, my apologies for the past week. I've been very ill. I should have took some of your advice in Deep Geek about holding back. My upper respiratory infection got terribly bad, and I'm pushing it even to do what I'm doing right now, and then our after show with Hacks Dogma that will be a live stream like it was last week. I hope you'll join us. I believe we do have a special guest for that as well. Waiting on that announcement. Very excited. But I usually will have the explained videos that I was not able to get out this week. In the future, a big announcement that I have, and we don't have an exact date set, but it's going to be a very different type of YouTube Confidential with the very well-known and esteemed in one of the original Game of Thrones YouTubers who is never shy about saying what is on his mind, Tony Teflon. And we are going to be doing a YouTube Confidential, me and him, probably the week of the 16th. So in about 2 weeks. So look forward to that, because I got a feeling that's gonna be something that might shake up the YouTube Game of Thrones world. At least Tony is very, very vocal about his opinion, and he's true to what he says. He's a real dude. So I'm really looking forward to it. Besides that, check out Before the Dust Settles, which will air about at 10:30 right after the show airs. And I couldn't be happier, Robert, and you, Vanessa. Couldn't respect you guys more.
And Vanessa, how about you? Is there anything you want to just flag up for people to check out?
So just, keep checking over at westworldwatchers.com, where we'll be doing recaps throughout the season and other news and information for you guys. So please follow us over there. And then I will, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, I'm going to be at Con of Thrones in Dallas later this month over Memorial Day weekend. So if you see me there, please feel free to stop me and say hello. And I'm happy to talk Westworld, Game of Thrones, whatever. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys there.
Excellent. And I am very jealous of everyone going to Con of Thrones. I wish I could make it this year. Next year, I promise I will be there. I know lots of people keep on asking me whether I will. Sorry, not this year, but next year I definitely will make it. Susan Dunkel, having then just said just before that little piece that I hoped you saw it, you then put in the super chat, $5. Thank you so much, saying thank you for mentioning the dam. You're very welcome. I'm glad you managed to catch that bit. Okay, guys, I think what we'll do now is we'll wrap that up for episode 2. There was, I'm sure, lots more we could talk about there, but I think we've covered off the main points. And let's have a little forward look now, thinking about episode 3 and then also a little bit beyond. Now, for those who don't know, they do short trailers for each episode, or they seem to have been doing them for the last couple of episodes. So we have got some hints that we also have episode titles for future episodes. And so we do have a few things to go on. But Vanessa, do you want to, just looking at next episode, episode 3, that is coming on in, just 3 hours time or whatever, what predictions have you got for that?
So yeah, the trailer was a little bit vague. We didn't get a whole lot of information. It does look like we're going to continue to see the Maeve, Sizemore, and Hector roadshow, which is fantastic. I'm greatly looking forward to that. There was a few shots in the trailer. It was really difficult to tell where they were, but there was this one shot, and I initially thought it was snow. So they're standing, it's kind of dark, looks like snow falling almost. A lot of people think it's ash. I still think it's kind of up in the air, so it could be one or the other. But that was really interesting to me. I'm not really sure where they are. But I thought from looking at the shot that there might be someone in a kimono in the background. It was really hard to tell, very blurry. But actually, as I was looking over the cast list, on the HBO website, they have the cast list for the upcoming episode, and there are none of the people that have been slotted to play characters from Shogun World are listed. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that this episode. So it could very well be a host. I know someone had mentioned that maybe it was, not a host, a tech in the background with the white suit and the red gloves. And we will actually be seeing Felix and Sylvester. They're both slotted to be in this episode, so they will be showing up tonight. We also have Armistice. Now, whether she's been in the past couple of episodes, I think just, as a quick shot, just, Dolores' past memories. So who knows? It could just be a memory, but maybe we'll see her in the present timeline. We will be seeing Stubbs and some of the other security guys. So Gustav Skarsgård and Faris, who showed up in the first episode. So we will be seeing the present timeline as well. So there were some of those shots in the trailer of there's dune buggy type vehicles that they were driving around in, and then it looks like they're fighting some of the hosts, like the Confederados. Whether Dolores is going to be taking part in that, I don't know. It's really tough to say because we saw it didn't look like they had been fighting anyone in episode 1. It looked like they had just arrived, and then they saw the flooded sea or lake or whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be interesting to see who they're actually fighting in those scenes. It looks like we're going to see some of Ghost Nation. So maybe that's the present timeline, and maybe they're going to be the ones fighting the security people. So that'll be interesting. I'm just trying to take a quick look. Oh, yeah, one of the other things, so we saw that brief shot of a tiger, which was interesting. We saw the dead tiger in the first episode where they said it was from Park 6, which we know is a different park from Shogun World, which is Park 2, listed on the Delos Destinations website. I've seen it floated about on Reddit that could be Raj World, so set in India, back pre-British invasion, back the time of the Maharaja and all of that. So
Careful.
So that could be what we're seeing. There is an actress, and I'm probably going to horribly pronounce her name. I apologize if I do. Pooja Shah. She is a British actress with Indian heritage. So perhaps we will actually see a brief bit of Rajwald or whatever they want to call it. And that's where that tiger is. So that'll be interesting if maybe Maeve and Hector and Sizemore stumble into that. So So it'll be kind of interesting to see where they go this season or this episode. Yeah, that's really about all the thoughts I think that I have for tonight. I don't know if you guys picked up anything else.
I actually had a quick question for you, Vanessa. Number one, the introduction of one of my favorite. I'm like a fanboy of now I can't remember his name. He was listed as playing Jonathan Tucker. He was listed as playing originally a security member, and I'm so pleased that he actually isn't, because he's perfect for his role. So I was really excited to see him in the way they implemented him into the show. But also, was that Zahn McClaren? I believe I'm saying that right, as in the flashback. Now he is part of Ghost Nation, but we see him playing a business kind of sewer or whatever you want to, for Delos, or to sell to Delos, whatever. I found that quite interesting. I don't know if you had anything on that, because he is now supposedly, from what I know, going to be the like leader that we will see, or the most prominent Ghost Nation member that we shall see. So we will be seeing Ghost Nation.
Akechi Ta, and he is in tonight's episode. So we will see him again, whether or not he'll be in his like businessman mode. But I don't think so, because we are not going to see Jimmy Simpson or Ben Barnes as young William and Logan. So we won't be getting that flashback, at least unless they're being super secretive and just not showing us. But like I said, I'm looking at the cast list right now, and they're not there. But another person we will be seeing is Katja Herbers from my mind just went blank.
The Leftovers.
The Leftovers, yes, thank you. She will be on tonight's episode, and she's going to be playing a seasoned guest. Grace, I think, was her name. So that'll be interesting. I'm assuming she's someone that's kind of been caught up in all of this chaos in the park, and I think she's actually in the next couple of episodes, so she should have a good part to play. And Jonathan Tucker will be in tonight as well. So I think it's going to be more focused on, like within the past 2-week time frame and the present day.
Yeah, that Katja Herbers was listed as a human guest, a seasoned human guest that will come to the park in its time of need. I find that very interesting. And I like the Zahn McClaren, if I'm butchering his name, my apologies. But I like, because it kind of gives a little bit more credence to Ghost Nation being like this separate entity of what's going on, because he's playing, on the outside world and on the inside with Ghost Nation. It's like, it kind of leads more to that, of why it seems like they're more of a tool. As we've seen so far. So I found that to be very, very interesting. And I couldn't be more interested or more excited to see Jonathan Tucker be a host. I think that, he's going to kill whatever role it is, but I'll fanboy all day about that. Watch Kingdom, watch American Gods. Every role he kills it. That guy's a method actor. He's awesome. But yeah, my only thing on the upcoming episodes, and I'll give it back to Robert, who this is his stream, is that I don't think that we're gonna see just a bunch of destinations that are just different parts of the world we know. I'm gonna lean more towards we're just gonna see more of a zoo. I don't know how much, an animal world. That could have these people of different ethnicities, within them. But I don't know if we're going to start seeing India world, or, Korea world, or Canada world, or anything. I don't know. It seems lame to me, but I don't know.
Well, we will see Shogun World. They've already, proven that they're going to show us that.
Yeah, I get that. That's why it's adding more to that. It's what are we going to see, next? I don't know, Finland world, Belgium world. I don't know.
Maybe they're not actually going there, but maybe because we already saw that a tiger had crossed over from another park. So maybe they'll encounter, another animal and another host that has, come over from a different park. So, we'll see. I don't know.
I would like to clarify that it is true that, and I'm not the only one. It seems like, and it's no excuse, but almost every content creator had made the mistake of associating the Bengal tiger exclusively with Shogun World. And I think that had a lot to do with us doing our research and only seeing Asia and being ignorant. And yes, we were wrong, but it seemed like we were wrong across the board. I don't know if it makes that any better, but I see a lot of people retracting what they've said before. And I as well apologize. For
I encountered basic. That a lot. I encountered that a lot, and I had to do a lot of correcting on that. No, they're not from Shogun World. It's too. Regardless of the fact of where you find Bengal tigers, it clearly said they were from Park 6, and Park 2 is clearly Shogun World. So it's not possible for them to be the same place.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I think that's quite clear to me. I honestly can't remember. I think I probably also fell into the trap of just assuming that they were coming from Shogun World, but I think it is very clear that they come from Park 6, which is not Shogun World, which is probably, I think, something like India World or Raj World or whatever they're going to name it. My guess is that what's happening with Maeve is that she's still trying to find her daughter, and some of the publicity shots for episode 3 seem to have sort of a steel or metallic background for her and the others. So I think that she must, at some point, her and her gang, in trying to get to where they're going, they go into the workings underneath Westworld, right. And perhaps this is what happens. I'm speculating here. Perhaps they sort of cross over near another world, perhaps Park 6, and we see the tiger there, and it seems to be dead when we see it a couple of weeks later. And I do wonder whether or not they sort of poke up their heads or something. A tiger jumps at them and they have to kill it, and it ends up there. Something along those lines. I don't think we're going to see a full-blown episode in whatever Park 6 is. I think there's just going to be a little bit of action going on there. I saw there's a super chat popped up from Amazon Force 20. Thank you very much. That's very kind. Saying Logan is bisexual. Yes, I think he probably is. That seems to be what the character's coming across as, and I think actually it's quite one of the things to the credit of Westworld is they've shown all shades of sexuality, which I think is probably fair and right in what seems to be quite an extrapolation of where the Western world has been going. I think that we're seeing quite a lot of people being open with their sexuality in a way that perhaps they've been more repressed in the past. So yes, I think his character is bisexual as far as we can see. In terms of other predictions for next episode, I think we've already talked about Maeve. We saw a shot in the trailer of Bernard, and this I think is going to be one of the crucial moments. Bernard and Dolores meeting. Now, that I think is fascinating because that implies a few things. That Bernard was with Charlotte. I think we're still on this same timeline here. So I think this was very much. Charlotte is obviously going to go out and try and find Peter Abernathy, but they seem to be separated. Bernard seems to have been ambushed or caught or something like that by Dolores, and then the two of them talk to one another, or Dolores talks to him, trying to persuade him of the value and worth of the hosts. Now, the reason I think this is really important is because Dolores remembers Arnold. She remembers everything. So she knows his character. She knows who he is. And she also knows that he is a host because obviously he's not changed in all this time. So she knows that he is a person who understands the workings of the park, having been this technician all the time, having been the right-hand person to Ford all this time. So that I think is the genesis for what we have seen coming up with the whole flood and the I killed them moment. I think this is where that starts to happen. I think that Bernard has to be central to whatever happened there, and it's going to be a part of Dolores's plot. So I think we're going to see the start of that happen. The Confederados, the last thing we saw with Dolores in this timeline was that she was heading off to try and get the Confederados on her side, to get herself an army. So I think that we will see that happen. That looks like there might be a little bit of a gunfight, but they will come over to her side. And then I think we are also going to see, and they like doing this in Westworld, is a different timeline, the 2 weeks later timeline of when the Delos security forces actually arrive in their sweep across the park and they attack the Confederados. So I think we're going to see that fort and the Confederados in two different timelines, 2 weeks apart. I think there's the last thing I would say is the Ghost Nation, because I'm fascinated by the Ghost Nation. I think that we know so little about them, but I think that they're clearly going to be in this episode because we saw them in the trailer. But in terms of, again, the timeline addicts, and I'll admit to being a timeline addict here, is that when you saw in episode 1, when the Delos forces were having a look at the sort of the memory, the video memories of that member of, I think it was a member of the Ghost Nation who was dead, and they sort of took off the top of the head and they took out the memory thing. They said this was recorded 12 days ago. Now, if the timelines are exactly what we think they are, again, we can't trust it completely, but if that was 2 weeks after the massacre, then that means that happened about 2 days after the massacre. And as far as we can tell, what has been happening with Dolores has so far taken about 2 days. So it may well be that this is the moment that we actually see her doing what we saw in the video, with her shooting the member of the Ghost Nation and saying, not everyone is worthy to go to the Valley Beyond. So I wonder whether we're going to start seeing those different things tying in together. Did anyone have any extra thoughts on this next episode, though, before we sort of move on to think about the season going forward? Because I know something that, Vanessa, you had a couple of thoughts on that.
Just a quick comment about her, killing these hosts, saying they're not worthy. I'm just wondering if it's because they haven't achieved enough sentience yet. We see in season 1 where Angela is talking to Teddy and basically assesses that he doesn't really know what's going on, and he's not close enough to being conscious, that she says, I can't remember the exact word she used, but she kills him basically and says, maybe in the next life, or something like that. So maybe that's what Dolores is doing, killing them so that they can, the suffering is what helps make you free or whatever like that. So maybe that's what she's doing to try and get them to that next level, so that then they'll be worthy. I don't know, just a thought.
Absolutely. And did you want to just sort of say, I'm going to start drawing it to a close, guys. So if you've got any more questions, then do just sort of drop them into the chat now. But Vanessa, you were just saying before we went online that they've now released the episode titles all the way up to episode 8, I think. Is there anything you want to sort of draw out for us there?
So they initially released the first 5, and I apologize, I didn't look up the next 2. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. I know one of them is, I think it's Akane no Mai, and that's the one that's going to be set entirely in Shogun World, I believe is what Nolan and Joy had said before the season started. So that one will definitely be, give us a good look at that. And I think it's something, I think there's a character named Akane, and I think Nomai refers to a dance. So it's something about Akane's dance. And I believe she's a host. So, we'll maybe see a bit of her journey, and maybe she'll be, achieving consciousness. So that'll be interesting to see. But so HBO on their, the Westworld website within HBO, it has listed the next 3. So it's episode 6, 7, and 8. There's no additional information. It's simply the title. We don't know anything else. So number 6 is phase space. And I am not a physicist. It is a physics term. So if any of you guys are into physics and know anything about it, I would love to hear your thoughts on what it might mean. The definition I found was it's a multi-dimensional space in which each axis corresponds to one of the coordinates required to specify the state of a physical system, all the coordinates being thus represented. So a point in the space corresponds to a state of the system. That makes no sense to me. I cannot fathom how that has anything to do with anything. So if anyone knows, let me know. But so there's that. The next one is interesting. It's les écorchés. It's a French term, and it means the flayed. So, that's I don't know if it's are we doing a Game of Thrones crossover? Are we going to see the Boltons in Westworld? I don't know. But there you go. So that's kind of foreboding. And then number 8 is Kiksuya. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it is a Lakota word for remember. So that'll probably be another flashback episode where we'll see more of Dolores's memories, or maybe another host's memories. So we'll get some more backstory hopefully there.
Fantastic. Justin, is there anything you want to add on that? Do you want to interpret all of those for us now and tell us exactly what the episodes are therefore going to be about?
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I think that there needs to be a little bit more looking into those than me just rambling whatever comes off the top of my head. I think that those need a little bit more investigating. I'm not one to just spew from the mouth whatever comes to the top of my head, believe it or not. So no, thank you, Vanessa, and I think that gives us a lot to take in, and we'll hopefully come out with some intelligent, at least guesses about what those are. But no, I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not gonna try to jump into that one by any means.
Excellent. So I'm just going, just having a quick look in the comments. Apparently it's Alexandra Sandu says it's not the flayed, it's a type of sculpture like the man from the intro. And Jeff Borst says, I think this is on the episode 6 title, it means something along the lines of more than one frequency of space on top of others. Think of different radio channels playing in the same area, but you need to tune each in separately, which sounds like lots of timelines to me. So I think we're going to get a lot of playing around with the timelines there. Okay, so guys, I think I'm going to start wrapping this up. Is there anything either of you want? Let's go first to Justin. Just as we're wrapping up, is there anything you just want to say? Just looking further forward, any random theories you just want to drop us with before we end?
Yeah, the only thing is my Ghost Nation theory, which I started recording and the fever set in, so I'll just spit out it now, best of my ability, is that I believe that the tattooing of the inner skull of the Ghost Nation is meant for those drone hosts to become awakened when they see it, and I believe that's why Dolores is killing them. It is a way to get them into that facility. I haven't put all the pieces together, but they don't speak, the drone hosts, so they obviously know how to scan information, and I do believe that is part of drone hosts against Delos, playing a trump card. And I believe that is the reasoning for these tattoos, because why else would we be showing the maze still? There's no narrative reason for it other than it still means something. We know what it means to the host, so it still has to play a part. I definitely believe that we are going to see that maze be play a critical role, the inner skull tattoo of the maze within the master plan of Delos, not Robert Ford. Well, mixed together. I think that we could see a possible awakening of those drone hosts to free themselves from the different, type of control that they're under. They're strictly for Delos. So I think that could be, part of the master plan right there. That's my tinfoil theory of the week.
I assumed that Ford did the maze on the inside of the scalp. I assumed that was one of his doings, but who knows?
Yeah, it's just why are they showing it again? You know what I mean? Like, it has to still mean something.
Right.
I mean, I just on that, I think for me, this is the only time we've seen this. I think we covered this a couple of episodes ago, actually, is that the only times we've seen this, it seems, on Ghost Nation scalps. And for me, that is a marking out of them in some way that these are Ford's separate, set apart hosts who are slightly different. And I think that fits in with this idea that Dolores is saying that not everyone is worthy because she sees them as being slightly different. They are one of these who are in a different place to the normal hosts because they've got special ongoing programming in some way, I would imagine, from Ford. So that's my general theory. Vanessa, are there any sort of theories or thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, I just want to make one final comment about tonight's episode, since I forgot to bring it up. I don't know how I managed to forget that, but we will see Peter Abernathy tonight. He will be back on the show. So I am really excited to see what's going on with him. And I'm hoping it's not just a flashback. I'm hoping it's actually him in the here and now. Because as we know, he was Sizemore had given him a semblance of a personality, whatever that means, and he's got all of that data inside of him. So it's going to be interesting to see what that means for his character, and kind of where he's going to go from here. So yeah, I'm excited to see him back. He's a fantastic actor. I love Lewis Hertham. He's magnificent. So it's going to be good to see him again.
Absolutely.
He made me cry during his Ford commercial. So
I couldn't agree more. I think we've got a lot of really interesting characters. This is probably the one where we're going to see, based on the character lists that you talked about. I don't think we've got time to be having this 30 years ago timeline in this episode. If we've got Abernathy coming back, we've got Felix and Sylvester coming back, Elsie perhaps, or Armistice. So I think we're going to see a lot of these characters all coming together, and we actually see where they're at. Okay, guys, I just want to thank you all. Do you want to just quickly remind people where to find you on the internet? Vanessa, first, where are you if people want to track you down?
So I do write for Westworld Watchers, so do go follow us over there. Doing recaps, news, information. I'm on Twitter at VKColeArtist, so please follow me. I report on Westworld as well as share my artwork. So if you're interested in that, please do follow me there. And I have a website for my artwork as well. It's vkcoleart.com, and you can go there and see all of my previous works and purchase artwork as well.
Excellent. And Justin, would you want to remind people where they can find you?
Absolutely. The Justin Thomas Show. They can also find me through the Amino Westworld app, and make sure to tune in at 10:30 with me and Hax Dogma. And I think, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, a special guest. And I'm trying to get that link up, but I don't have a wrench, but I'll just post it somewhere. Yeah, we will be doing another live stream with our initial thoughts right after the show airs. It'll be on 10:30. And thank you again to Robert, and thank you, Vanessa. I couldn't be more honored to be on a panel with both of you.
Excellent. Well, it's been a delight to have both of you guys. Thank you so much for the chat. There's been some really good questions, really interesting, thought-provoking stuff going through. Thank you particularly for the super chats. That's incredibly generous. Thank you to my guests. I do really recommend checking out pardon me, Justin's channel and also Vanessa's work over on Westworld Watchers and the art there again. And please do check them out. As for me, my channel, every Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be having these live streams. Within 24 hours of the episode airing, you will have my breakdown and explain video. Thank you, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting, and I shall see everybody on the other side. Take care.